All right, let's get going. Good afternoon, everybody. Um, as you probably all know, I am Paul Byrne. I'm the Research Data Services Librarian here at Syracuse. I support Qualtrics, at least the end user stuff. The administration is done by somebody else. Before we start, are there any questions about anything that we've done so far? Last week or perhaps the previous weeks? Okay, great. Um, Today we are doing what I call question order. And this is basically different ways of um, automatically reordering the questions or skipping them, randomizing them, doing what's called loop and merge, which can be very useful in some instances. Um, So what we'll do first is called display logic. And display logic is good for when you want to um, show or not show a question or maybe two based on your respondent's answer to a previous question. Um, display logic can be applied to either an entire question or to individual responses, even within a question. Um, Sometimes the logic can be tricky, and we'll see this in a moment. Um, so let's take a look. And I have some questions already set up here. Do you like chocolate ice cream? And various possible answers, including I don't like any ice cream. And the next question, why do you like chocolate ice cream? And then why do you not like chocolate ice cream? Well, of course, if a person says, yes, I definitely like chocolate ice cream, you don't want them to see the question as to why you don't like it. And similarly, for if they say, no, I don't like it, you don't want to show why they do. And if they don't like any ice cream, you really don't want to show either one of these. So you have a couple of choices in how to accomplish this. One is using display logic. So we want to display question two based on the responses in question one. So we highlight it and come over here to the left to display logic. And we've seen this kind of thing already. You can base it on a question or any number of other things. 99 times out of 100, it will be based on a question. You select which question. In this case, it's going to be the first one. Do you like chocolate ice cream? And we'll say probably yes is selected. Of course, you have is not selected, is displayed, is not displayed. Of course, it's all displayed at this point. And you can even have several conditions here. I'm going to talk about this in a second. By default, it says and, which would mean that both of these conditions need to be satisfied to display question two. Of course, the way we have this set up with radio buttons, they can only answer one of them. So we need to change it to or. And then we can change this to definitely yes is selected. And we're good to go. I'm going to show you in page in a moment. And you can see how, it shows you that there's display logic on this and what the logic is. We'll come down to question 3 and we'll do something very similar based on a question. Question 1, select the choice. We'll say definitely not is selected, or probably not is selected. And we'll click save. Okay, so you can come up here to preview. Actually, I'm going to click publish. So I was playing around with this earlier. I just want to make sure everything's cleared out. And click preview. Do you like chocolate ice cream? I'm going to say probably yes. And so it shows, why do you like chocolate ice cream? It tastes good. And you click, and it's the end of the survey because we told it to not choose we didn't want it to show, why do you not like it? Because we said we liked it. So let's try it the other way. Say definitely not. And now we see, why do you not like chocolate ice cream? So that's a pretty simple use of display logic. And as you can probably tell, very useful. When display logic is good when in a situation like this where you have a couple of questions you want to display or not. If there's a whole bunch, maybe you want to skip or display or not, you either want to use skip logic, or you might even have to do something a little bit fancier and do it using survey flow, which we're going to do in the next class. Let's take another look at this display logic. So you can come over here to the little thing, and you can either remove it or edit it. As I mentioned, you have a choice between and or. And this move to a new logic set. If you're familiar with any kind of SQL type database query language, this is like putting parts in parentheses. So we can add another part here, and we can say or. And again, you have and, if, and, or, just like here, and another logic set. So what this will do is it will evaluate this part of the logic first, and then this part. And then it looks at the whole thing. So we say and, so the response would have to be either probably yes, definitely yes, and just to change it, I'm going to say might or might not. It's probably not too often you're going to need this kind of thing, but I want to show you so that you could see what it does. If you're getting into, complicated logic and you've got, a whole bunch of individual elements and you're doing these nested things, stop. Take a nap, get some coffee, get a beer, whatever's your preference, go for a run, whatever. Put it down for a little while and don't think about it. And then come back and see if there's a simpler way that you can do it. Because, of course, you have to test this, and you have to test every single possibility to make sure that it works the way that you want. Because once you send it out, once you send it to your respondents, you really absolutely do not want to make changes to this, because some people will answer it with it this way and then others with the new way, and that can really mess up um, what you do, what kind of data and responses you get back. And close that and close this one. And I'll show you what this in page does. First, I'm going to save this, and I have a habit of clicking publish whenever it's clickable. And we'll say probably yes. And so now you see the next question comes up on the next screen, the next web page. If we change this to in page, see, this changes a little. Click save, do preview. Now you can see it popped up down here instead of going to another page. And you can even click there. All right, I didn't change it on that one. And it got messed up because I kept clicking back and forth. Do restart. Where did I put that on? Oh, I only said probably yes. That's why. So you can see, and this is really nothing more than aesthetic. Do you want the next question to pop up underneath this one or on the next page? You might have a perfectly good reason for either one. And that's fine. It's not going to change what data you collect. It's not going to change how the rest of the survey works. As I say, it's just a visual thing. Are there any questions so far about display logic? Okay, the next is skip logic. And as you can see over here on the left, skip logic is grayed out because we're on this question that has display logic. You can't do both that way. But what you would want to do is just put the skip logic up here. So now you see, and the logic is very much the same. Why do you like? And we're going to say, I don't like anything. And you have all the is not, etc. Okay, and we'll go here and I don't like any ice cream. You see, it goes right to the end. In most instances, edit conditions. include quota, you probably, this means if whether or not it would include this respondent in counting towards the quota, which we've mentioned. I'm going to add a block and a question, just is that. Take this out for a second. You have several choices where to skip to. You can skip to another question within that same block. You can skip to the end of the current block that this question is in, or right to the end of the survey. So I'm going to pick end of block. And I don't like anything. Hit confirm. As you see, it went to that new question that I put in at the very end, because what happened is it came to the end of this block. And of course, that's the end of the block. It will automatically go to the next one. So the skip logic, especially if you're using, if you have it go to the end of the survey, this can be your consent statement. Are you 18 or over? If they say no, you can have it skip right to the end of the survey. They go right through it. Are there any questions about that? So you can also see here, and I'm going to mention this again in a moment, how whether or not you show the question numbers to your respondents is going to be affected by using skip logic, display logic, and in a moment we're going to do randomization. As I've mentioned, accessibility says, yes, show them the question number. But of course, if you're skipping things and displaying or not displaying, then the numbers get out of order. And especially if we're doing randomizing. Oh, and as I mentioned, you can also do display logic on individual responses. And the logic works exactly the same. Question, the whole bit. So you might have a whole bunch of answers, and depending on what they've said previously, you may not want them to see certain answers. Any questions? Okay, randomizing. I'm going to take these logic things out. In Qualtrics, you can randomize the order of the responses. You can also randomize the order of the questions within a block. And as we'll see when we do survey flow, you can even randomize blocks. Let's take a look at randomized responses. Come down here to choice randomization. And what's nice is that this randomization works whatever it is you're randomizing. Of course, the default is no randomization. Display answers in a random order. That's pretty much what it says. I'm going to click publish because I made a few changes. And so we went from definitely not to definitely yes. And so you can see how the answers are in a different order. And if we redo it, it changes again. Over here and do, you can say present only, I'm going to say 3 of the total choices. So we'll only display 3 of these in a random order. And so you can see how that changes. And sometimes you want to do this, if you have a whole lot of possible responses, sometimes you randomize it just because people tend to do the first few and then say, I'm tired of this and go on to the next question. You don't want any kind of response bias with that. Randomly flip is exactly that. It will just flip the order back and forth. So it'll be definitely not to, I don't like any ice cream. Then the next one will be, I don't like any, down through until definitely not. Consistently reverse the order means make sure that it's always the same way back and forth. And advanced randomization. This is where you can get really fancy with things. You can see this is the order of the questions. And so there might be an instance where you want to randomize some choices and not others. So we'll randomize this one, and that one. And so you can see that the first 3 are randomized, but the others are always in the same order. Again, you can randomize a certain subset. We could move all of these down here and then choose one from that subset. So the first three are randomized, and then these three are always in the same order. Randomly reverse a subset of them, or exclude some items. And it says don't display choices from this list. I suppose there might be some instances where you would have a list here and don't want to show some of them. That's why this is here. But I haven't been able to think of an instance where that would, where you want to not show some of the items to anybody. That's the case why I have it in there in the first place. So as I say, this kind of randomization works the same whether you're doing individual choices like this or whether you are, I'm gonna take that out. We're gonna do no. You can also randomize the order of questions within a block. So you highlight the block, and then you come over, and now it says question randomization. And it's all the same stuff. No randomization, just randomize all of them, certain number, and then the advanced randomization that we just looked at. And as it says, it's, it's going to ignore page breaks, questions per page, all that other, anything else that you might put in there. Because of course, skip logic and, if you're randomizing, then it may not, the skip pattern is going to be messed up. And when we get to it and you want to randomize entire blocks, all that same logic applies, that advanced randomization. Are there any questions? Okay. The next thing we're going to look at is called loop and merge, and I have a different survey set up for that. That's not the one I was looking at. Oh, actually, it is the one. Yes. Sorry about that. I've got too many of these example things floating around. Loop and merge is good when you want to ask the same set of questions repeatedly about certain, I guess, things. So here I have it set up with ice cream flavors. I say, please select your 3 favorite flavors of ice cream. And then I want to ask about each of the flavors that are selected. How often do you eat it? And why do you like it? Now, normally you might say, oh, I got to make this big long thing and do a whole bunch of stuff so that I can ask each of these questions, how often and why, each time. So you have to repeat these, 5 times. Well, loop and merge makes that easy. One thing is that the loop and merge works on, so we have the main question here, but the loop and merge works on this block. So we highlight that block, we go to loop and merge, turn it on, and we click loop based off of a question. You can do loops that aren't based on a question and it just goes through the loops. But 99 times out of 100, it's going to be based off of a question. So we'll select the question, please select. And you can see all choices displayed, not displayed. In this instance, we're going to select selected choices. So that would be the 3 that the respondent asked for. And as you can see, it automatically populated field 1. We're going to see what field 2 and what you can do with this in a moment. And you can randomize the order of the loops. By default, if somebody picks chocolate, vanilla, and habanero, that's the order that the second questions are going to be: chocolate, vanilla, and then habanero. If you randomize the loop order, it will randomize those 3. Okay, so we can click save, do publish. I'm going to show you something fancy. So you see, it goes through the first loop, second, third, and it goes on to the next question, which we're going to look at in a few minutes. Now, as you can see, it says, how often do you eat? Well, eat what? You want to be able to display the responses. And you can do that. You come to the question and our handy dandy piped text. You come down here to loop and merge. You have loop and merge fields. And in this instance, you select field 1 because there's nothing in field 2. We're going to see that in a minute. And just for fun, I'm going to show you what the loop counts are. The current loop number, and the total number of loops. And we can add here as well. Chocolate, strawberry, and rocky road. So it says, how often do you eat chocolate? Of course, you wouldn't normally display this to the respondent, but I just wanted you to see what it's doing. And sometimes these can be useful. It's the first loop of 3. Why do you like chocolate? How often do you eat strawberry? It's loop 2 of 3 loops. And then rocky road. And it's the third of 3. And so it should boot out of that particular loop. So you can see where this, could be rather useful. You can also, this can also be useful. The example here is if you're doing research on a family and you want to ask the mother, the father, whoever, how many children you have, and then ask some questions about each of those children. Well, unlike up here, where we know how many loops there are going to be, of course, you could put uh, validation so that they don't answer more than three or have to answer three, whatever. But you kind of know how many loops there are going to be. And it will be the same for every respondent. But of course, down here, you don't know how many, and it won't be the same for every single respondent. But you can still do the loop and merge. So we click on this block. Oh, this was still turned on. So I'm going to turn it off. So you turn it on, and it's still loop based off of a question. And we base it on the question, how many children do you have? And will automatically pop up numeric response, because that's how it knows that it's going to be, and it has to be numeric. They can't write the word three in there. It has to be numeric. And you can put a maximum on the number of loops. If you leave this blank, then they could put in 357, and then they have to go through the loops 357 times. Oh, I wish I had taken this out. I'm going to cancel that. As we saw the first time, if you're just coming in to this and you put 5 in, it would automatically populate this field 1 down to 5, and field 2 would be blank by default. And so, as you can see, I had already put in first, second, third, fourth, fifth. We'll click save, publish. Just going to click here. It should go straight to how many children do you have? And I'm going to say 3, because we don't need to go through all 5. You see what is first one, second, and third. And again, we can make it a little bit easier for the respondent. Go down to loop and merge fields. And now you see that field 2 is populated. Oh, I probably should have hit publish, huh? And see. So it says first child, second, and third. And as you saw, the first time I clicked to this, it didn't put the words in here until I clicked publish. So that's why I'm usually in the habit of, whenever I see this being clickable, I click it. I spaced there for a second, and so you can see how that works. So that, I guess, was a happy mistake. um, so you can see where this can be really useful. Um, you can also nest loops. I'm not going to show you that. I have on my Qualtrics page a guide for nested loops. And you could use that for something like if you're asking for somebody's employment history. The work at several different companies, and perhaps within each of those companies, they've had different positions. So, you can ask them, how many companies have you worked for? And then for each company, you say, how many positions did you have here? And then loop again. Um, so that's pretty much what we need to get through today. Are there any questions? Did I put everybody to sleep? Okay, then. In that case, we are done for today. Remember, there is no class next week. We will be back here again on November 7th. And as always, if you have questions in the meantime, you know where to find me. I'm happy to help. And if there's nothing else, I hope everybody has a good couple of weeks.